It started on a quiet night, the kind of night when the sky looked endless and peaceful. Most people were asleep, unaware that something extraordinary was happening far above them. In a small observatory on the edge of a desert, a young scientist noticed something unusual on her screen. A faint pattern, hidden deep within the usual background noise of space. At first, she thought it was interference from a satellite or an error in the signal, but when she adjusted the frequency, the noise turned into a rhythm like a heartbeat. It wasn't random. It repeated every few seconds, following a clear structure. She called her team, and soon the observatory came alive. Monitors blinked, radios buzzed, and data flowed across the screens. The signal wasn't coming from a nearby star or a human-made satellite. It was coming from beyond the known boundary of our solar system, from somewhere far in the dark, cold stretch of the galaxy. The pattern grew clearer as they decoded it, and what they found made the entire room fall silent. It was a message. It wasn't a greeting, nor was it a threat. It was a cry for help. The message repeated in multiple frequencies as if the sender was desperate to make sure it was heard. After long hours of decoding, a short line of translation appeared on the main monitor. "Help. Diane, come quickly." Those 3 words were enough to send chills down everyone's spine. The scientists knew they were witnessing something historic, but they also felt an unfamiliar weight pressing on their hearts. Someone, or something far away, was asking humanity for help. Within hours, the news reached higher authorities. Government agencies took over the data, and secrecy wrapped around the discovery like a thick fog. Only a few people knew the truth. In public, nothing was said, but in hidden conference rooms and underground facilities, discussions began. Was it real? Could another civilization exist out there? And if it did, should humans respond? Weeks passed, and more observatories across the world picked up the same signal. Each time it came, the message grew weaker, as if whoever was sending it was fading away. International scientists confirmed that it came from a dying planet in a distant star system. The distress call had traveled for hundreds of years before reaching Earth. That realization made everyone pause. The ones who sent it might already be gone. Still, the idea that life once existed beyond Earth filled people with awe. But not everyone saw it the same way. Some leaders feared what it meant. If there were others out there, maybe they weren't all friendly. Others believed it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make contact. The debate divided the world's governments. While scientists dreamed of peace, politicians prepared for danger. Then something strange happened. Satellites orbiting Earth began to pick up a new kind of energy, faint but consistent, coming from the same direction as the signal. It was as if something was moving closer. The world's space agencies started tracking the source. Every day the readings grew stronger. It became clear that it wasn't just a signal anymore. Something physical was approaching our planet. The news eventually leaked to the public, and panic spread quickly. Some people believed it was the beginning of an invasion. Others saw it as the arrival of travelers who had reached out for help long ago. The skies were watched more closely than ever. Ordinary people pointed their telescopes upward, waiting for the first glimpse of something not from this world. Then, one evening, it happened. Astronomers spotted a cluster of faint blue lights moving slowly against the stars. The lights grew brighter, larger, and more distinct as they approached Earth's orbit. They weren't meteors or satellites. They were ships, enormous and wounded, drifting silently through the dark. Their surfaces glowed faintly, marked with burns and fractures as if they had survived a terrible disaster. When the first ship entered Earth's atmosphere, it wasn't a landing. It was a crash. The craft broke apart in a storm of fire and metal, its fragments falling into the Pacific Ocean. Rescue teams were dispatched immediately. Military ships surrounded the area, keeping the public away. What they found left even the most hardened officers speechless. Amid the wreckage, deep beneath the waves, were remains, not of monsters, but of beings unlike humans. They were frail, almost skeletal, encased in strange metal suits that seemed to have kept them alive for as long as possible. Their technology was ancient yet far beyond human understanding. The scientists who examined the remains confirmed that these beings had once lived and had traveled an unimaginable distance seeking help. The distress call was real. For a brief moment, humanity united in sorrow. The world mourned the strangers who had died so close to salvation. People lit candles and prayed in silence, realizing they had shared the universe with others, even if only for a short time. It could have been a turning point, a moment of compassion and discovery. But as time passed, curiosity and ambition began to take over. The wreckage contained objects no one could explain, glowing crystals that never dimmed, metallic cores that pulsed with energy, and fragments of unknown alloys that seemed alive. Scientists wanted to study them for knowledge, but governments wanted to use them for power. Soon the wreckage was moved into secret research facilities guarded day and night. The message of help was forgotten. What mattered now was what could be gained from it. Some experts warned that tampering with the alien technology could be dangerous. They noticed strange magnetic readings and bursts of radiation whenever the materials were handled. But the warnings were ignored. The more humans experimented, the more unpredictable the energy became. Around this time, strange events began happening around the world. Communication satellites failed without reason. Weather patterns shifted unexpectedly. A deep vibration ran through the planet, felt but never heard. Scientists feared that whatever energy was left in those alien devices was reacting to Earth's environment. Some believed it was a defense mechanism. Others said it was a distress echo, the ship still trying to connect to their home. Then, something new appeared in the signal. The old repeating message suddenly changed. The words were distorted, stretched, and mixed with static, but a new pattern emerged. Experts believed it was another message, one that no one could understand yet. Whatever was coming, it was not over. The world found itself at a crossroads. Humanity stood staring into the unknown, torn between fear and curiosity, between compassion and control. They had answered a cry from the stars, but they didn't know what that answer would cost. As night fell once again and the world's cities glowed beneath the stars, few people realized that this was just the beginning. The faint hum from space continued, soft but persistent, like a heartbeat in the dark, a reminder that something far beyond Earth had reached out and touched humanity's world. Whether it was for peace or warning, no one could yet tell. But deep inside every person who had heard the signal, there was the same quiet thought, that this was not the end of the story, but the spark that would change the fate of the human race forever. The world was holding its breath when the first alien ship fell into the ocean. At first, no one knew how to react. News channels repeated the same footage over and over, a trail of blue light cutting through the night sky, ending with a burst of fire on the horizon. Governments called it a meteor event, but people weren't fooled anymore. Everyone had seen the lights move in formation, too steady to be falling rocks. Something had arrived. For days, the crash site in the Pacific Ocean became the center of the world's attention. The military surrounded the area with ships and submarines. Helicopters hovered day and night, and scientists from all over the world were flown in secretly. No one outside the restricted zone knew exactly what was happening, but whispers began to spread. Fishermen along the nearby coasts claimed they saw strange metal pieces floating in the water, glowing faintly under the moonlight. When the first recovered piece of wreckage was shown to scientists, they realized it was nothing like human technology. The metal wasn't burning or rusting despite being pulled from deep seawater. It felt cold to touch but emitted a soft pulse, almost like it was alive. As they studied it further, they found a strange humming sound coming from inside the metal, like a heartbeat trapped within. That's when the truth became undeniable. The ships in orbit, the distress signal, the crash. It was all real. Inside the wreckage, divers discovered what appeared to be a control chamber. Most of it was destroyed, but there were remains, shapes of beings who had tried to survive. Their bodies were thin and delicate, built for a world with lighter gravity. Their faces were hidden behind cracked helmets made of transparent material, and their suits glowed with faint blue lines that faded slowly as if the power within was dying. When the remains were brought to the surface, the sight left everyone silent. These were not enemies, not invaders. They were explorers, travelers who had come too far. Even the toughest military officers lowered their heads out of respect. The rescue teams called them the lost visitors. The discovery should have united humanity. For a short moment it did. Around the world, people looked up at the night sky with a strange mix of fear and hope. News of the crash leaked through, and although the details were hidden, people sensed the truth. Crowds gathered outside space agencies holding candles and messages of peace. There were prayers, songs, and even silent vigils for the fallen travelers. Humanity wanted to believe that somewhere in the vastness of space, there had been friends trying to reach them. But behind closed doors, the mood was different. In underground research bases, scientists and government officials examined every piece of alien technology recovered from the wreck. The most powerful nations began to argue in secret meetings about who should control it. They saw not only knowledge but power that could change everything. Some argued that the technology could heal the planet's energy crisis, maybe even cure diseases. Others saw it as a chance to create weapons no other country could challenge. Soon, the message that had once united the world became the cause of its division. One country claimed it had rights over the discovery because the wreck landed within its waters. Another insisted it belonged to all humanity. Disputes grew louder and hidden deals were made. The same technology that could have brought peace now threatened to ignite conflict. In the middle of this political struggle, scientists continued their work, often against orders. They had managed to access fragments of data from the ship's systems, blurry recordings, bits of audio, and unreadable text. Among those fragments, they discovered something heartbreaking. A small piece of translated data repeated a phrase, "We came for help." The signal wasn't just random static. The travelers had been seeking refuge, but when this discovery reached certain officials, it was suppressed. They didn't want the world to see the aliens as victims. It would make the secrecy harder to justify. So instead of telling people the truth, they focused on what could be gained. The wreckage was quietly transported to hidden facilities across deserts, mountains, and islands. Even the scientists who worked on it were sworn to silence. While all this was happening, something else began to unfold. The sky started showing strange patterns. Auroras, bright-colored lights, appeared in places where they had never been seen before. Electric storms formed suddenly, even on clear days. Power grids began to flicker and fail. Pilots reported strange readings on their instruments when flying near the crash site. It was as if Earth itself was reacting to what had fallen into its oceans. One night, astronomers noticed that the remaining alien ships in orbit had begun to move again. Slowly, silently, they adjusted their positions, forming a pattern above Earth. People on the ground could see them now with the naked eye, glowing softly like blue stars that refused to fade. Some believed the ships were preparing to land. Others feared they were waiting for an attack signal. Governments raised their alert levels, but what no one expected was what happened next. The ships didn't attack, nor did they descend. Instead, they began to transmit the same SOS message again, louder this time, echoing across multiple frequencies. Every radio, every satellite, every communication line picked up a faint pulse of sound. Even car radios and old television started to buzz with a repeating tone. It was the same message that humanity had first heard. Help. Dying. Come quickly. This time, though, the signal didn't stop. It spread like a wave across the world, causing disruptions everywhere. Communication systems broke down. GPS satellites went offline and aircraft lost contact with control towers. Scientists realized something important. The signal wasn't just sound. It carried energy. The ships were broadcasting something far beyond human technology's understanding. While governments panicked, some scientists tried to find meaning in what was happening. One theory suggested that the remaining ships were not alive in the way humans understood, but rather operating on automated systems, like a final survival instinct. They might have been reacting to the destruction of their fallen companion, attempting to reconnect with the others, or perhaps send a final message back home. The situation grew more unstable each passing day. The world's major cities prepared for emergencies. News anchors spoke in calm tones, but their eyes showed fear. Some people believed the world was facing its end. Others held signs that read, "Welcome, our friends, and we will not harm you." The human race was divided once again. This time, not by borders or beliefs, but by how it viewed the unknown. In the middle of the chaos, a quiet realization began to spread among a few scientists. The alien ships had not come here to conquer or threaten. They were simply lost and dying. The SOS signal had been a call of desperation, and Earth had been the closest planet that could hear it. These beings had traveled across impossible distances, holding on to hope that someone would answer. But instead of comfort, they had found confusion, fear, and suspicion. Humanity, faced with something far greater than itself, had reacted the only way it knew, by trying to control what it didn't understand. As days turned into weeks, the alien signal grew weaker. One by one, the glowing lights in orbit began to fade until only a few remained. Then one night, without warning, the last ship dimmed completely, disappearing into the dark. For a few seconds, the sky above Earth was completely silent. No signals, no lights, nothing. And then, something extraordinary happened. A faint blue beam of light rose from the Pacific Ocean, where the first ship had fallen. It pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat, then faded into the clouds. No one could explain it. Some believed it was a final goodbye. Others thought it was a warning. Whatever it was, humanity would never forget that sight. A glowing mark of what could have been the beginning of friendship between two worlds. Instead, it became a story of lost chances and unanswered calls. Somewhere deep in the ocean, the remains of the alien ship continued to hum softly, its energy core still alive, still sending invisible waves through the water. Those who worked near it said they sometimes felt a strange vibration under their feet, like the Earth itself was whispering. And far above, the stars remained silent, as if waiting for humanity to decide what kind of species it wanted to be when the next call for help came. The world had changed after the arrival of the alien ships. The signal that once brought wonder now carried tension. The wreckage found in the Pacific Ocean was no longer treated as a mystery to study. It had become something powerful to possess. What had begun as a story of discovery was slowly turning into a struggle for control. The remains of the alien visitors, their ships, and the strange energy sources hidden inside them had drawn the attention of every powerful nation on Earth. Inside secret facilities, scientists worked day and night, trying to understand the strange energy pulsing within the alien materials. The metal seemed alive, glowing with soft waves of blue light. It was not nuclear, chemical, or electrical. It was something entirely unknown. When connected to ordinary power sources, the energy multiplied itself, creating currents strong enough to light up entire cities. Some scientists believed it could end all energy shortages on Earth. Others warned that it could destroy everything if handled the wrong way. One team of researchers discovered something even more shocking. Deep inside a fragment of the alien core, there were traces of memory. Not human, but stored patterns of information, like thoughts frozen in time. The data was old and broken, but when they managed to decode a small portion, the room fell silent. It was an image not of war or invasion, but of a burning world. The scene showed a dying planet covered in dust, its oceans shrinking, its cities collapsing, and among the destruction there was one final ship taking off into space. That image confirmed what some had already guessed. The aliens hadn't come to Earth as conquerors. They had come as survivors. Their world had perished, and their last hope had been to find another place to live, or at least someone who could hear their cry before it was too late. But that truth was kept hidden. Governments feared that sharing it might weaken their control. They told the public that the ships carried dangerous materials, and that secrecy was necessary for global safety. Behind the walls of hidden laboratories, something darker was growing: greed. The powerful wanted to own the technology. Nations began to accuse one another of stealing fragments from the wreck. Small conflicts broke out in different parts of the world. Instead of learning from what had happened, humanity was repeating its oldest mistake: fighting for power. While all this unfolded, strange events continued around the planet. The sky glowed with blue flashes that lasted only seconds. Earth's magnetic field started to behave unpredictably. Some people claimed to see flickering lights under the sea, near where the first alien ship had fallen. Animals migrated away from the coasts as if they sensed danger coming. In one underground lab, scientists noticed that the alien energy core had started to pulse faster than before. Its rhythm matched the same pattern as the original SOS signal. It was as if the technology itself remembered the distress call. Every time they tried to contain it, the pulse grew stronger. Instruments began to malfunction. Data screens went black. The scientists warned the authorities that the core was reacting to something, maybe to the destruction of the other alien ships in orbit, or perhaps to another signal coming from space. But the warnings were ignored. Instead of stopping the experiments, world leaders saw an opportunity. They believed the energy could be turned into a weapon, one that could defend Earth from future threats. Military bases began to receive orders to develop new systems powered by the alien core. Engineers worked under pressure, creating machines that could channel the energy into destructive beams. They said it was only for protection, but everyone knew the truth. It was about dominance. The planet's atmosphere started to change without warning. Strange waves of light appeared over cities. Compasses no longer pointed north. Communication networks were unstable. Scientists tried to warn that tampering with alien energy could disturb Earth's balance, but their voices were drowned by political pride. No one wanted to be the first to admit they were wrong. The pulse from the alien core grew stronger, spreading through Earth's magnetic field. Satellites began picking up strange readings from the upper atmosphere. A few experts believed that the remaining alien ships, though lifeless, were still connected to the core somehow. They were sending signals to it like a heartbeat echoing from space to Earth, and then, without warning, the signal changed again. It was no longer the same SOS call. This time, the pattern was faster and sharper. Computers struggled to decode it, and the few words that appeared on the screens terrified the people watching. Do not awaken the core. That message spread secretly among the scientists. But again, it was dismissed by the military as a technical error. They insisted that the words were mistranslated or meaningless. Work continued as planned. Soon after, the alien energy inside the core started affecting weather patterns. Massive storms appeared over the oceans, and strange lightning bolts hit in places where it never rained before. It was as if nature itself was reacting to the foreign power buried deep within the planet. Some religious groups believed Earth was angry, that humanity had disturbed something sacred. Amid all the chaos, one group of researchers tried to send a peaceful response to the original alien signal. They built a small transmitter in an old observatory and encoded a message of their own. We received your call. We want to understand. But before they could send it, the government shut them down, claiming their transmission could invite danger from space. The scientists were heartbroken. They had wanted to show that not all of humanity was blind with fear or greed. Weeks later, something extraordinary happened. Late one night, a bright blue beam of light shot down from the sky, landing exactly where the alien core was kept. Every device in the facility shut down at once. The ground shook and the air filled with static electricity. Cameras captured a strange shape forming inside the beam like a hologram made of light. It wasn't solid, but it looked alive. Some said it resembled the beings from the crashed ship, reaching out as if trying to communicate. Then, just as suddenly, the light disappeared. After that night, the energy core stopped pulsing. For the first time in months, the Earth's magnetic field returned to normal. People thought it was over. Governments declared victory, claiming they had stabilized the alien power. But deep underground, instruments detected something else. A slow buildup of energy beneath the surface, spreading quietly through the Earth's crust. The scientists who remained on the project were divided. Some believed the aliens had left a message buried within the core, something meant to protect their technology from misuse. Others feared it was a warning signal being prepared to release. Whatever it was beyond human control. As time passed, the pulse began again, slower this time, but deeper. Satellites started malfunctioning across the globe. The strange lights returned to the skies and electrical systems flickered everywhere. People began to panic again. Governments blamed one another, accusing each other of testing alien weapons. In truth, no one was in control anymore. The SOS signal that once united the world had now turned into something haunting. It echoed faintly through every radio frequency, like a ghostly reminder of what had been lost. And the message seemed to evolve. The words became harder to decode, but their tone felt different. It was no longer asking for help. It sounded like a warning. Humanity had reached a turning point. The discovery that could have brought peace had become the cause of fear. The same hands that reached out to explore the universe were now trembling under the weight of their own creation. The world had heard a cry from the stars and answered it with greed. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the sky, something was listening still. As the days went by, the pulse from the core grew brighter, and scientists realized that something massive was approaching from space again, something connected to the same signal. The world didn't know whether it was rescue, retaliation, or something entirely beyond human imagination. But one thing was certain. The moment of truth was coming. The planet that had once been the listener was now at the center of the story, and whatever was coming would test the very soul of humanity. The world had already been living in fear. The strange signals, the storms, the pulsing light from the alien core, all of it had made people restless and scared. No one truly understood what was happening. Governments tried to calm the public by saying that everything was under control, but the truth was very different. Deep inside the secret facilities where the alien core was kept, scientists were watching something terrifying. The energy inside the core was changing. It wasn't just glowing anymore, it was expanding. It pulsed like a living heart, growing stronger every day. The experts warned the leaders again and again. They said the core was not meant to be contained or used. It was reacting to something, maybe the destruction of the other alien ships that once floated in Earth's orbit. But their warnings went unheard. The military was convinced that what was happening was an attack, that the aliens were trying to strike back through their technology. Fear took over reason, and fear, once it takes control, can make even wise people act foolishly. In the middle of all this chaos, strange natural disasters began to occur. The ocean waves became rougher. Earthquakes shook cities that had never felt them before, and lightning storms appeared in clear skies. Scientists were puzzled, but the cause was right beneath their feet. The alien energy was spreading through the Earth's magnetic field, disturbing the planet's natural balance. Every storm, every tremor, every sudden shift was linked to it. But instead of stopping their experiments, the leaders doubled their efforts. They ordered the alien energy to be studied faster, claiming that humanity needed to find a way to defend itself. They believed the aliens were planning to return, this time not as victims, but as conquerors. Every nation began to prepare for war, not against each other, but against the unknown. Satellites in space showed that a new wave of energy was approaching Earth. It looked like a huge glowing cloud, moving across the darkness of space. The readings were so strong that they affected radio signals on Earth. Some thought it was a meteor storm. Others believed it was the return of the alien race that had sent the SOS signal years ago. Whatever it was coming fast. In panic, the world's governments met secretly. They decided to create a unified defense system, a fleet made up of the most powerful ships from every major country. They called it the Global Defense Initiative, though many whispered it was more of a global weapon. Huge warships, loaded with missiles and newly developed energy weapons built using alien technology, were sent into orbit. Humanity's fleets surrounded the planet ready to strike. But while the fleets prepared for war, the alien core on Earth continued to pulse faster and brighter. It was responding to the same incoming energy from space. In a hidden research base, scientists noticed something horrifying. The frequency of the pulse matched the planet's magnetic rhythm. If it continued to grow, it could destabilize the magnetic field completely, wiping out communication, power, and even parts of the atmosphere. They pleaded with leaders to shut down all operations, but fear had already taken charge. The day the pulse reached its highest point, the sky turned an unnatural shade of blue. Strange waves of light rippled across the clouds. Every compass on the planet spun wildly. Birds flew in circles, animals ran for cover, and in the oceans huge waves began to rise. It was as if the Earth itself was crying out. Then suddenly the alien core released a massive burst of energy. It traveled through the air, striking satellites, power grids, and communication systems. Everything went dark. Cities lost electricity. Airplanes were forced to land. The internet, radios, even mobile networks stopped working. The entire world was silent, connected only by fear. The military assumed the attack had begun. Without waiting for confirmation, they launched their plan. Missiles were fired into the sky, aimed at the approaching energy wave. The fleets in orbit opened fire too, sending bright beams of light into the dark space above Earth. It was a sight unlike anything ever seen before, streaks of fire and energy cutting through the night, reflected in the oceans below. But humanity didn't realize what it was doing. The incoming wave wasn't an invasion. It wasn't an army. It was a response, a message perhaps, or the remains of something trying to reach the planet one last time. When the missiles struck, the energy wave exploded, releasing an immense amount of radiation. The skies burned red, and for a few moments the entire planet glowed as if a second sun had appeared. The explosion caused unimaginable destruction. The shockwave damaged satellites and created a ripple that circled the Earth. The atmosphere heated up, and storms formed instantly across continents. In some places, the temperature dropped suddenly, causing blizzards. In others, unbearable heat waves began. The world's climate went wild. Humanity had just attacked the very thing it didn't understand. The fleets celebrated their Victory. Strange patterns appeared in the sky, swirling rings of blue and white, light that slowly drifted across the globe. It was beautiful but terrifying. Scientists realized these were side effects of the explosion. The alien energy had mixed with Earth's upper atmosphere, permanently altering it. Rain became acidic and the magnetic poles began to shift. The planet was changing faster than anyone could control. On the ground, people were frightened. Families gathered indoors, watching the strange glow in the sky. Many believed the world was ending. Others prayed for forgiveness, not knowing what humanity had done. Governments tried to reassure the public, but they had no answers left. The disaster was beyond anything they could fix. Days later, scientists made a devastating discovery. The energy wave that humanity destroyed wasn't a weapon. It was a distress response, much like the original SOS signal. The dying alien civilization had likely sent it as a final attempt to communicate or to recover the remains of their people from Earth. By attacking it, humanity had not only silenced their message but also triggered a planetary reaction that was now irreversible. The realization hit everyone hard. News of the truth leaked out, spreading faster than anyone could stop it. People were furious. Protests erupted in cities worldwide. How could the leaders have acted so recklessly? How could humanity respond to a call for help with destruction? But anger couldn't undo what was already done. The Earth's weather grew worse. Massive floods swept across coastlines. Forests caught fire from dry lightning strikes. Tornadoes and hurricanes appeared in unusual places. The world's balance had been broken. The energy from the alien core still pulsed faintly underground, now impossible to shut down. Scientists said the reaction might continue for years, maybe decades. In the middle of all the destruction, some people tried to find hope. They believed that even though humanity had made a terrible mistake, there was still a chance to learn from it. They began small movements, teaching others about unity, compassion, and responsibility. They said that if another signal ever came from the stars, humans must listen with open hearts, not weapons. But for most of the world, fear remained. The fleet stayed in orbit, watching the sky for anything that might come next. Humanity had tasted power, but it had also felt the weight of its choices. The alien SOS, once a simple cry for help, had now turned into the spark that ignited Earth's wrath. As the nights grew darker and storms filled the horizon, people looked up at the strange glowing sky and wondered if the universe would ever forgive them. Somewhere deep under the ocean, the wreckage of the first alien ship still glowed softly, untouched by time, as if it was still waiting for an answer that never came. And in the silence that followed, the Earth itself seemed to whisper, not in words, but in the language of thunder, wind, and fire, reminding everyone that even in the vastness of space, every action has a price. The world had not yet recovered from the chaos caused by the alien core and humanity's reaction to the mysterious energy wave. Cities were still in repair, storms and strange weather continued to sweep across continents, and the global communication network had never fully returned to normal. People were afraid to look at the night sky because they did not know what might appear next. Every satellite, every spaceship, every radar was alert. Humanity had learned the hard way that the universe could be dangerous, and now it was determined to protect itself, no matter what it took. In secret military command centers, leaders from the world's most powerful nations met again. This time, they decided they could not rely on luck. They needed to build a fleet, a massive fleet unlike anything the world had ever seen. Ships were constructed with advanced propulsion systems, many incorporating alien technology scavenged from the wreckage. Weapons that could destroy objects in space were installed, and entire teams of astronauts and soldiers trained together for months in isolation. The operation was called Operation Dawn Strike, though its meaning was whispered only among the top commanders. The fleet was enormous, stretching into orbit with hundreds of ships. Each vessel was armed with the most destructive energy weapons humanity could create, some powered partially by the alien energy core itself. The goal was clear. If anything resembling the alien signal or the approaching energy came again, humanity would strike first, without hesitation. Fear had replaced compassion, and military planners were convinced it was the only way to survive. At the same time, scientists continued their study of the remaining alien technology on Earth. Some believed that the core might be able to communicate again if handled carefully. Others argued that it was too dangerous to touch and that any attempt to interfere could trigger another disaster. but their voices were ignored. Fear and pride had taken over. Every new reading from the core was treated not as a chance to understand, but as a potential threat to be neutralized. Weeks passed, and the fleet moved into position. Every nation with a seat at the table sent its best ships into orbit, ready to fire at a moment's notice. The tension on Earth was palpable. Citizens watched the skies, unaware of the preparations above them. The night was quiet, almost too quiet until the first sign appeared. Sensors on the fleet picked up an anomaly in the outer atmosphere. A glowing formation, similar to what had been seen before, was approaching fast. The readings were unlike anything humans had recorded. Some scientists aboard the fleet suggested it might not be an enemy at all, but the commanders refused to take chances. Orders were given to arm all weapons and prepare for immediate engagement. When the formation came into visual range, the crew stared in disbelief. It was massive, not a ship but an entire system of glowing energy, moving with purpose. The ships in orbit were silent as they tried to assess what they were seeing. The energy waves pulsed rhythmically, almost as if they were alive. Some crew members felt fear, while others were overwhelmed by awe. This was the closest humans had ever come to witnessing something beyond imagination. Despite the awe, the decision had already been made. The fleet fired first. Beams of concentrated energy streaked toward the glowing formation. Explosions erupted in the darkness of space, followed by waves of light and fragments of unknown material. The impact caused ripples that traveled across space and back toward Earth, but the fleet had made a terrible mistake. The energy formation was not a threat. It was a dying star system, broadcasting the last signals of the alien civilization that had sent the SOS. Humanity had mistaken a final call for help as a danger, and in striking it, they had destroyed the very source of knowledge they could have learned from. The effects were immediate. The destruction released a shockwave of energy that traveled across space and entered Earth's atmosphere. Electrical grids went offline again, communications were disrupted, and power plants shut down. The skies over the planet lit up with strange auroras, and a deep vibration ran through the Earth's crust. Some feared that another massive earthquake was coming. Scientists aboard the fleet tried to understand what had happened. They realized that by attacking the energy formation, they had disrupted a delicate cosmic balance. The SOS signal was silenced forever, and the remnants of the alien civilization had been obliterated. The knowledge, the message, the opportunity to understand another world. It was all gone. Humanity had acted too quickly, letting fear dictate its decisions. The consequences were not limited to space. On Earth, natural disasters intensified. Storms grew stronger. Lightning struck in unexpected places, and sudden shifts in the magnetic field caused compasses and navigation systems to fail. The world's climate became unstable, with some regions experiencing record heat while others were frozen by sudden blizzards. Crops failed, and water systems were disrupted. The planet itself seemed to be responding to humanity's aggression. The fleet returned to orbit above Earth, but there was no celebration. Instead, there was silence and regret. Even the military commanders who had ordered the attack could not deny the truth. They had struck first, and in doing so, they had made enemies out of silence, turning a plea for help into destruction. Some scientists and engineers aboard the fleet tried to salvage what remained. Tiny fragments of alien material that had survived the destruction were brought aboard for study. They discovered that the energy core, still pulsing faintly on Earth, was linked to the destroyed formation. Its pulse had slowed but not stopped. Some believed it might try to send another signal, but now humanity had no allies to hear it. The SOS had been answered, but in the wrong way. Meanwhile, on Earth, people noticed strange changes in their environment. Animals behaved differently, moving away from cities and coasts. Trees and plants grew in unusual patterns, as if reacting to an unseen force. Scientists warned that the planet's energy field had been permanently altered. The damage from the attack in space was now affecting the ground beneath their feet. Humanity had learned a difficult lesson. The universe was not something to control with weapons. Among ordinary people, fear turned into reflection. Across the world, communities gathered to discuss what had happened. Many realized that humans had let pride and fear cloud their judgment. The message of the alien civilization had been simple: a call for help, not a threat. Instead, humanity had responded with destruction. The thought haunted many. and it led to small movements emphasizing understanding, cooperation, and the importance of humility in the face of the unknown. Even the leaders could not ignore the lesson. Some nations tried to apologize, offering to share the remaining alien fragments for peaceful study. Others doubled down, insisting that they had acted to protect Earth. But no one could bring back what was lost. The SOS was gone, the alien civilization destroyed, and humanity had to face the consequences of its choices. The fleet remained in orbit as a reminder of what had been done. Weapons were ready, but now there was hesitation in their use. People below watched the sky, aware that their planet had survived a moment that could have destroyed everything. The scars of the attack remained, in the sky, in the weather, in the hearts of people who realized that fear could destroy even the best intentions. In secret labs, the remaining fragments of the alien ships hummed quietly. Scientists discovered that the materials were still alive in some way, pulsing faintly as if they remembered the original civilization. It was a subtle reminder that while humanity had destroyed the SOS signal, the universe still held mysteries beyond understanding. The energy of the aliens persisted, waiting, perhaps for another chance to communicate, or perhaps just bearing witness to human error. As days turned into months, humanity reflected on its choices. The world had faced something unimaginable, and in responding with aggression, it had changed itself. Fear had led to action, and action had led to consequences that would be felt for decades. Cities rebuilt, but the memory of the event remained. The night sky was watched more closely than ever, but now with caution rather than wonder. Humanity had learned that not all signals from the stars are warnings. Some are cries for help that deserve to be answered with compassion, not weapons. The alien SOS had ignited humanity's fleet, and humanity had struck without pity. The lesson was written in every disrupted system, every storm, and every pulse of energy still emanating from the remnants on Earth. It was a story of ambition, fear, and the cost of misunderstanding. And while life continued, people could no longer look at the night sky in the same way. Somewhere beyond the stars, something had called for help, and humanity had answered. But the answer had been wrong. Even today, in hidden corners of the planet, the alien fragments pulse faintly, reminders of what was lost and what could have been. Scientists continued to study them, hoping that someday humanity might learn to listen without fear, to respond without violence, and to understand without assuming danger. The universe had spoken once, and though it had been silenced, its lesson remained clear. Power without wisdom leads to destruction, and a single choice can change the fate of an entire species. The years after the attack in space were hard on humanity. The planet had changed, and people had changed too. Cities had rebuilt, but the scars of storms, floods, and earthquakes remained. Communities learned to live with uncertainty, because the weather could shift without warning, and strange phenomena still occurred in the skies at night. Even the scientists who had once studied the alien core admitted that the energy inside it was unpredictable, and no one could say for certain what it might do next. Humanity had survived, but it was a fragile survival. People began to reflect on the choices made during the crisis. History books told the story, but the truth was felt more than it was read. Humanity had reached out to another civilization and responded with fear and aggression. The SOS from the stars had been a simple plea for help, and instead of compassion, humanity had answered with weapons. That memory haunted the leaders who had given orders, and it lingered in the minds of ordinary people who had witnessed the events from afar. The alien fragments that remained on Earth were kept in heavily guarded facilities. Scientists continued to study them, but the work was slower now. Fear had not left the world. Every experiment was cautious, every reading double-checked. The fragments hummed faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed alive, almost like the remnants of the civilization that had once sent them. The scientists sometimes felt that the pieces were watching, waiting, or perhaps remembering. Communities across the globe began to change too. People started small movements, teaching younger generations about humility, patience, and the importance of understanding before acting. Schools added programs about critical thinking, cooperation, and the dangers of fear-driven decisions. Leaders gave speeches emphasizing the lessons learned, that the universe is full of unknowns, and humanity must approach them with curiosity and care, rather than with aggression and control. Despite these efforts, the scars of the past remained. Some regions were still unstable, with unusual weather and occasional natural disasters tied to the lingering energy of the alien core. Farmers had to adjust planting schedules to unpredictable rains and temperature swings. Fishermen avoided areas where strange lights sometimes appeared under the water. People learned to live with uncertainty, but it was never easy. One discovery changed the way humanity thought about its past actions. Scientists managed to decode more fragments of the alien technology and discovered part of the original message in its true form. It was more than a simple SOS, it was a story. The aliens had sent a record of their civilization, their cities, their people, their achievements, and finally, their destruction. The message spoke of hope, of reaching for help across impossible distances, and of a desire to connect with others rather than to fight. The realization was painful. Humanity had not only destroyed their chance at survival, but had also silenced a message of culture, life, and history. The knowledge changed hearts. Across the globe, people held vigils to honor what had been lost. Monuments were built using fragments of the alien ships, and inscriptions were written in many languages. May we never strike before understanding. These memorials were not just for the aliens, but also for humanity itself. Reminders of the moment compassion was replaced by fear. Over time, the alien energy in the core slowed but did not disappear. Scientists warned that it could reactivate if tampered with carelessly, and so it remained untouched, a sleeping reminder of the past. People came to accept it not as a threat but as a teacher. It was a presence on the planet, silent and patient, showing that life beyond Earth existed and that humans must treat the universe with respect. In some cities, people organized stargazing nights. They looked for lights and signals in the sky, not in fear but in hope. Children listened to stories of the SOS and of the fallen civilization. The lesson was simple yet profound. Curiosity must be guided by understanding, and actions have consequences that can last for generations. Even decades later, satellites occasionally picked up faint pulses from the alien core. The readings were weak, harmless, but they reminded humanity that the universe still had mysteries beyond comprehension. These pulses were not cries for help anymore, nor were they threats. They were echoes of a civilization long gone, silent witnesses to the choices of another species, watching how humanity learned, or failed to learn, from the events that had unfolded. Historians wrote extensively about the era. They described the initial discovery of the SOS, the arrival of the ships, the crash in the Pacific, the experiments on the alien core, and the devastating response that had changed the planet forever. Every chapter emphasized a single truth. Humanity's first encounter with life beyond Earth was a mirror, reflecting both its greatness and its flaws. It was a reminder that intelligence, power, and technology alone were not enough to guide a species. Wisdom and empathy were just as vital. Families told stories of the time to children in quiet moments. They did not tell tales of monsters or invasions, but of choices and consequences. They spoke of a civilization that had reached out in hope, and of a species that had answered too quickly with fear. They reminded the young to listen before reacting, to seek understanding before making decisions that could affect others, and the planet itself. In some remote places, the glowing fragments of alien ships were displayed as part of exhibitions, carefully contained so they posed no danger. People came to see them, marvel at their design, and reflect on what had been lost. It was an experience that combined awe with humility. Visitors would leave quietly, often carrying a new understanding of their own responsibility as inhabitants of Earth. Even the leaders who had once ordered attacks changed over time. Some became teachers, sharing the lessons learned with younger generations. Others worked to prevent military actions driven by fear alone. Governments began to cooperate more closely, realizing that humanity's survival depended not on weapons, but on collaboration and careful judgment. The events of the SOS had reshaped diplomacy, education, and even science, teaching that no single nation could hold power over the unknown. Though the alien civilization was gone, its influence remained. The SOS had been answered in the wrong way, but it had left humanity with a profound message. The universe is full of voices waiting to be heard, and respond